1 minute until showtime. One minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. Put shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down and patient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth. Lead me in your truth, and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yahweh who fears Elohim, of who believes everything. And to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse. You know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy and His love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy.
Captivity is taking hold upon me. Put fright in me and now we flee from fallen leaves. The ground and grief from all the blood our people seen. And now we cry, where is the word from Elohim? And so we said that we are His wives to be submissive, but we dismiss it. It is of this reason we have fallen victim to the lies that your root will pray and pursue. Rebellious of the Son, forgotten that He is one. Broken the holy ordinance, rejection of reproof. Then acknowledge what we do. Now we return back to the truth.
Yah's word is the truth. Yah's decrees is the proof. Local 12 just released the scoop. It's the summer of Sam. They calling it Pam. Made us worship the Son of Man. And somehow that the moon, they stole our style and gave it to Rothschild. Now we exhaust the vow, but hit the turnstile. Yah's not be set to crooked things straight. Praise Yah from the rising to the evening to the closing the gate. Exposing the fake. Yah give the truth a day break. Now the liars can't escape and the haters can't relate to the light the truth makes. See the wicked's pride deflate. Ye adore Yah, magnify Yah, cause His grace.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the Holy One of Israel, to the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is by saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Once again, we come before you on another great and glorious day that the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is, has allowed us to bring to you another program of nothing but the truth. And yes, it is true. All we're going to do is tell you the truth. For Yah ordained me to tell you the truth, so this is what I'm going to do. Let me say shalom to my beautiful brothers and sisters who's tuning in each and every day. Pray the Almighty be with you, that you might understand, and that you might see, and that you might do. My name is Mowreh IshiYAH, YIsraEL, of the house of Israel, located right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, 1907 Vine Street. The Almighty is very beautiful and righteous in all his ways. The Creator said he would do certain things in the last days, and we are seeing these things literally come to pass. But before we talk about some of these things, who is this Yah that has allowed us to come before you, that allowed us to speak his word? Well, this Yah is the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is. Yah is the Elohim of our fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and YIsraEL. And Yah is our lawgiver. He's our king. He is our savior, and not just of Israel, but the world. And as I was stating before, the Creator, in his infinite wisdom and his loving kindness and tender mercies, even all the way unto this very generation, have not forsaken his people, nor has he forsaken the world. He still exists. He's a living Elohim. And if you pay close attention, the wisdom, the understanding, and the knowledge that he allowed his servants to have is still here. This week, we started off talking about seeking ye out of the book of Yah and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want or make. For it is his mouth that has commanded, and it's his spirit that has gathered them. And anything that we want to know, and everything that we want to know, is contained in the word of Yah. In the Creator's word, he said, let there be lights. And let these lights divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. And we started speaking on the very signs, the very seasons, days, as well as years yesterday. And we started off with the third. And why the third? Because you will find with the third, this is the time that the Almighty elected for a particular purpose. For there is no time that don't have purpose under heaven. For every time has purpose. And what Yah purpose at the third was with his messenger. This is why, and not just his messenger, I may add, but anything that he would separate to himself, this is the sign that the Almighty would use. For example, in the book of Genesis, the 2nd chapter, this is what it says in the very first verse.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work, which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work, which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day, and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work, which Elohim created and made.
So we see here on the seventh day, the Almighty rested from his work, he ended his work, he blessed this day, and he sanctified it. But little do people know that there was a sign to let you know that the Creator indeed sanctified this day. Well, that sign is 3. And why 3? Because the Sabbath day, the seventh day, came 3 days after the Creator made the lights in heaven. And these lights are signs, seasons, days, and years. And there was a reason why he did this. Not only the Sabbath was a sign that was separated and sanctified unto him, the Almighty even separated the males of Israel. And this is what the Creator had to say about that. And I'm going to show you the sign that the Creator used to sanctify the men of Israel. And you'll find this in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, this is what it says in the 16th verse, Deuteronomy 16 and 16.
3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which he shall choose.
And why 3 times a year? Is this just some random number or random time? No, because this is the sign that Yah will use to separate, to sanctify his servants, his people. And then he let you know the 3 times.
In the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Yahweh empty.
And so we see the Sabbath day was sanctified and separated on the 3rd. We see even the males, where the Creator said 3 times a year all the males had to appear before him. Even the very first prophet in the book of Genesis, the 22nd chapter. Genesis 22, verse 4.
Then on the 3rd day,
On the 3rd day.
Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off.
Yeah, and this is when Abraham went to sacrifice his son Isaac in the land of Moriah, which means Yah has seen, on this mountain. But why on the third day? Because this is the time. This is the season. This is the day. This is the sign, and this is the year. Just to show you the year, go to the book, since we're in Genesis, Genesis 40. And I may add, on this third year, it begins on the third day. In the book of Genesis 40 and 20, this is after Yah's servant Yosef interpreted the butler dream of 3 branches and the baker's dream of 3 baskets. And he said these 3 branches and these 3 baskets were actually 3 days. And then it says in the 20th verse,
And it came to pass in the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday.
Yeah, it looked like, oh man, this is Pharaoh's birthday, but that's insignificant. What's significant is this is the day that Yah would use to sanctify a servant, separate a servant. And then on this third day,
which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto the butlership again, and he gave a cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him.
Yeah, and as it is, it's still the third day. And I'm going to show you that it's still the third day in Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed. And behold, he stood by the river, because he began to dream. And after he began to dream, this is what it says in the 8th verse.
And it came to pass in the morning.
And it came to pass in the morning, because in the morning it starts another day. So when he had this dream, it's on the third day, and he called Yah's servant to interpret this dream.
And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day.
In other words, he began to let him know about Joseph, and they ran for him. And this is the third year, because it said at the end of 2 full years. And the only thing come after 2 is 3. And the only day that's mentioned is the third day. And not just them. When was Israel sanctified and set apart? Look in the book of Exodus 19. And this we went over all yesterday. I'm just doing a quick review to let you know this is the day not only he sanctified his nation of people in the book of Exodus 19 and 10. What do it say?
And Yahweh said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today.
Sanctify them today.
And tomorrow.
And tomorrow.
And let them wash their clothes.
And let them wash their clothes.
And be ready against the third day.
And why the third day?
For the third day Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai.
Yeah, because this is how he sanctified his people. This is the day he separated the Sabbath day. This is the day he separated his prophets, such as Abraham, such as Joseph, such as Moses, such as Jonah, who was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights. But this is also how he separated his priests. what day, when was Levi born? Levi was the third born of Jacob. So as you can see, this is what the third represents. These are the signs, the seasons, the days, and the years that Yah will have you know of the third. Today we're going to talk about the fourth. And you're going to see not one sign about a crescent. You're not going to see one sign about a full moon. You won't see one sign about any of these things that we have learned from our enemies. These words are not even in the scriptures. And we're going to prove that to you. But in the book of Exodus 20, this is what it says. Because this is the third commandment. And watch what the third commandment says in the 7th verse.
Thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
And see, the Almighty don't want you to take his name in vain. And he put a test to everyone to see whether they will take his name in vain or not. And this is the test. The Almighty will send somebody to our people that will speak in his name, and he's going to see if you're going to regard and how much you regard his great name. Now, the mass majority of our people, they're going to dismiss his name. And the reason they're going to dismiss his name because they're going to dismiss his word. And so they're going to take his name in vain because they're going to say, oh, man, that man wasn't sent by the Most High. And they're going to disregard it, even though the very man that's sent by the Most High is able to prove everything he's sent to do. But it's going to be disregarded. And the commandment says, thou shalt not take the name of Yah thy Elohim in vain. And this is what you're going to find. And the reason why we dealt with the third first is because the Almighty wanted you to know how the Sabbath is a sign that he has set you apart. And he wanted you to know everything that he set apart and the very sign that set you apart. Why you think the tithes, the year of tithing is the third year? Because tithes is holy. It's set apart. Therefore, the year of tithing was the third year because that's what the third do. Now that you set apart, this is the very thing that Yah wanted you to know about the fourth. Go to the book of Leviticus, the 19th chapter. So today, we're about to talk about the signs, the seasons, the days, as well as the years that is the fourth. And you're going to find that the Almighty only has 7 different signs, 7 different seasons, 7 different days, and 7 different years. And watch what the Creator said in the book of Leviticus, the 19th chapter, starting at the 23rd verse.
And when ye shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of fruit of trees for food, then ye shall count the fruit thereof as uncircumcised. 3 years shall it be as uncircumcised unto you. It shall not be eaten of.
So for 3 years, you don't even eat this thing. Go ahead.
But in the 4th year,
But in the 4th year,
all the fruit thereof shall be holy, to praise Yahweh.
well, now you can praise Yah, because in the 4th year, that is the year that Yah determined and decided and desired for his praise. The fourth is the sign for his praise. The fourth is the season of his praise. The fourth is the day of his praise. And the fourth is the year of his praise. And this is what you're going to see. But the only way you can praise him, the only way, is that you be holy. That's why you had to know first the very sign, the very season, the very day, and the very year in which Yah would set you apart, would sanctify you, that you might be holy. And that's the third. But now that you know how you're set apart, now you can praise Yah. Because the only way you can praise Yah is that you be holy. And let me show you this. Show you that I'm telling you the truth. This is why the Creator said this in the book of Psalms 113. Turn there. Now that you are set apart, or you know how you're set apart, now it's time to praise Yah. And it says in Psalms 113, verse 1 through 3.
Praise ye Yahweh. Praise, O ye servants of Yah. Praise the name of Yahweh. Blessed be the name of Yahweh from this time forth and forevermore. From the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same, Yahweh's name is to be praised.
Why from the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same? See, Yah could have easily said, from evening unto evening shall my name be praised, but he didn't. Yah could have said, from evening unto morning my name is to be praised, but he didn't. And Yah could have said, from morning unto morning my name is to be praised, and he didn't say that either. He said, from the rising of the sun and to the going down of the same, his name is to be praised. In other words, from sun up to sun down, because Yah gave us days, and he sown light for the righteous. And this is the time. This is the season. This is the day. This is the year. And this is the sign that Yah will put forth to give you and nobody else for him to be praised. When were the lights born? Well, they were born on the fourth day. When he made the sun, moon, and stars, no wonder he said from the rising of the sun until the going down of the same, because that's when the lights was born. And you notice, since they was born on the fourth day, this is the first time Yah began to be praised. Because the fourth is that sign. And let me tell you, people ain't the only one that praise Yah. The Almighty told the sun and the moon to praise him. The stars of light to praise him. Everything praise Yah. You think you're the only one praise Yah? No. He wants everything to praise him. And that didn't begin until the fourth day. So it makes sense when I read the book of Genesis, the 29th chapter. Turn there. Genesis 29. So it makes sense to me when I read a scripture like this in the 35th verse.
And she conceived again.
And she conceived again, talking about our foremother, Leah. She had 3 sons. The first one was Reuben. The second one was Simeon. The third one was Levi. And watch this 4th son that she had.
And bare a son.
And she bare the son.
And she said, now will I praise Yah.
Now, why couldn't she praise Yah with Reuben? Why couldn't she praise Yah with Simeon? And why couldn't she praise Yah with Levi? Why did she wait to the 4th son to praise Yah? Because this is the sign. This is the season. This is the day. This is the year of Yah's praise.
And she called his name Yehudah.
That's what his name means.
And left bearing.
Furthermore, go to Genesis 49. In the book of Genesis 49, read the 8th verse.
Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise.
Now, why would Judah or Yehudah, why would his brethren praise him? Because that's what he was born for. Yehudah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise.
Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee.
Not only they will be praised, but they will bow down before thee. And little do people know, every time you throw your hands up, you praising. Every time you get on your knees, you praising. Every time you bring an offering, you praising. This is what praise is all about. But why the 4th? Because this is the sign, the season, the day, as well as the year that Yah had desired and determined for his praise. Not these other random and times that are the heathen has given our people. These times ain't even in the book. Watch what it says in the book of Exodus 20. In the book of Exodus 20, the 8th verse, and what do it say?
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Why? Why keep the Sabbath day holy? Because to praise Yah, you got to be holy. You have to be set apart. You have to be sanctified. You can't bring no fruit unto Yah that's not holy. You can't bring no animals to Yah that's not holy. You can't praise Yah if you're not holy. Because if you're not holy, you don't even know how to praise Yah. And so the Almighty saying, look, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, because that is the day that Yah had determined and decided to be praised. That's why it's the 4th commandment, even though the Sabbath day is the 7th day. 9th verse.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy Elohim. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven, earth and sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Shabbat day and hallowed it.
Yeah, he hallowed it. He sanctified it. He set it apart. And he made it holy. Because anything holy, once it's holy, then you can praise Yah. And this is what we're talking about, Yah's praise. And we're talking about the sign of the fourth. What is the fourth? The fourth is just a particular light. You have the one light, you got the second light, you got the third light, you got the fourth light, all the way up into the seventh light. And these lights are called signs, seasons, days, as well as years. That's what they're called. And we're talking about the signs, the seasons, the days, and the years, but we're particularly talking about the fourth. And there's a scripture that escapes me right now. It's about the famine that Yah said will come about his word. Yeah, let's turn there for a second. It's in the book of Amos, the 5th chapter, because I want you to see something. Show you what the Almighty would do in time to come. And you say Amos, the 5th chapter?
Chapter, 11th verse.
All right, make that Amos the 8th chapter. And I want you to see, yes, this is it. I want you to see what the Creator has proposed to do in the nearest of future. And you'll read it in the book of Amos, the 8th chapter, the 11th verse.
Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh Elohim, that I will send a famine in the land.
He will send a famine in the land.
Not a famine of bread.
In other words, it's not going to be a bread, although people are going to be storing up bread, but the famine is not going to be a bread. You're going to have plenty of bread.
Nor a thirst for water.
In other words, you're not even going to have a thirst for water because there's going to be plenty of water to drink.
But the hearing of the words of Yahweh.
The famine is going to be of the hearing of the words of Yah. That's where the famine is going to be. And then you're going to know it's a famine because watch the 12th verse.
And they shall wander from sea to sea.
They shall wander from sea to sea.
And from the north even to the east.
And from the north even to the east.
They shall run to and
they
fro.
gonna run to and fro.
To seek the word of Yahweh.
And they're going to be seeking the word of Yah.
And shall not find it.
And shall not find it. And let me tell you when that time is going to be. I'm going to show you exactly when it's going to be. And you'll read this in the book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. Can you imagine not hearing the word of Yah? Well, you don't have to imagine it because it's going to happen. In the book of Proverbs, Proverbs, the first chapter, not the third chapter. And watch what it says starting at the 25th verse.
But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof.
In other words, you just simply will not take the counsel of the Most High, and you will have none of his reproof.
I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind.
And it's coming. This is coming. Your fears, all your fears is coming as you thought they would, they are coming.
When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me.
Then they're going to call upon me.
But I will not answer.
Because, see, it's going to be too late. See, these are things you got to do before your anguish come upon you. Before the fear comes as desolation. Before the destruction coming as a whirlwind. You had to do all this before then. And they shall call upon me, but I will not answer.
They shall seek me early.
They're going to seek me early.
But they shall not find me.
They're not going to find me, and this is why.
For that they hated knowledge.
They hated knowledge, even though he sent someone to talk to you about knowledge and the knowledge of the holy, you hated it.
And did not choose the fear of Yahweh.
And you didn't choose the fear of Yah.
They would none of my counsel.
You didn't want none of his counsel.
They despised all my reproof.
And you despise all his reproof.
Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely.
They're going to dwell safely.
And shall be quiet from fear of evil.
They're going to be quiet from the fear of evil. And all we're doing is bringing you the word of Yah. These are not my words. I didn't put these words in this book, in these scriptures. This is where the Creator told us to seek him from. He said, seek ye out of the book of Yah. So the prosperity of food is going to destroy you. And we're talking about the fourth. And I'm letting you know a famine is going to come. This is what happened during the time of Egypt. Because I want you to see, when our people walked down into Egypt, it was the fourth year. And this is what you're going to find about the fourth. The fourth represents Yah's praise. That's why oftentimes when Yah did anything with his people, and when he did many things with his servants that he had separated, like his prophets, he did it at the fourth because Yah wanted his praise. Why you think the very first year, the very first month, the very first season, and the very first day of the very first month and year and season all occur on the fourth day? Because Yah, he's going to get his praise from everything. From everything. And I'm going to show you the very first sacrifice that Israel gave unto the Most High was on the fourth. When Israel walked into Egypt, a free people, it was on the fourth. When the land of Yehudah, Jerusalem, was established, it was in the fourth. And I'm going to show you that even when Israel be delivered in the nearest future, You already know it's going to have something to do with the fourth, because Yah has decided and determined to get his praise. And watch what it says in the book of Genesis 41. Again, what are we discussing? We're discussing Yah's signs, seasons, days, and years. And what we're discussing today is the sign of the fourth, the season of the fourth, the day of the fourth, and the year of the fourth, because this is his sign, season, days, and years. The lights are the very signs that you should be looking for. And the Almighty gave it to his people, gave it to his servants, and not to anyone else. They looking at crescents and full moons and half moons and third moons, but they're not looking at what the Creator told us that will be for signs, seasons, days, and years. Watch what it says. Genesis 41, starting at verse 53.
And 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended.
In other words, the Almighty, when he gave Pharaoh this dream, and his servant Joseph interpreted this dream, he said it would be 7 years of plenty. And it was. But then he said, following the 7 years of plenty will be 7 years of famine. And the 7 years of plenty began on the third day of the third year, which was the beginning of the third year. But then it says in Genesis 53 again, 41 and 53.
And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended.
They were ended. And look what happens.
And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands.
It was in how many lands?
All lands.
Uh-huh.
But in all the land of Egypt there was bread.
So how, if it's in all lands, and our people don't know what a famine is, because oftentimes every year they trying to look for some abib that they not growing, that they don't see, and they look on the internet to see who got the abib. They don't realize, how could you go by the abib in a time of famine? And here we're talking about 7 years of famine. And if it is essential that you had abib, then how could you know the beginning of a year, when that is the very thing to let you know the beginning of the year? No, Yah let you already know what you need to know the beginning of any year, or any day, or any season, is the lights. And all he mentioned was the lights. And the only way you're going to know those, if Yah teach you and show you. But watch what it says.
And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according to as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to do, to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth.
How much of the earth?
All the face of the earth.
In other words, they could have went anywhere in the earth, and the famine was everywhere. So you couldn't go wherever you want to get some wheat and some barley and some rye. because the famine was all over the earth. Go ahead.
And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came to Egypt.
How many countries?
All countries.
All countries came into Egypt.
To Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands.
Well, what's sore? Sore means something that's hurting and grievous and painful. It's sore. And this famine lasted for 7 years. And it began in the 3rd year. It was 7 years of plenty, and that began in the 3rd year. And then following the 7 years of famine, which also began in the 3rd year. And that wasn't the only time it was a famine. Go to the book of Genesis, the 12th chapter. Just want you to see this. Because when the Almighty said there's going to be a famine in the land, not of bread, not of water, but of the word of Yah, I just want you to understand what a famine is. A famine is something, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. I done heard people say, well, certain plants can strive during the time of famine. There is no plant life in famines. Genesis 12, and watch what it says in the 10th verse.
And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land.
For the famine was grievous in the land. And that's what a famine will do. A famine will make you get up and leave. What you going to do, just stay there and starve? No, a famine, it'll send you where it wants you to go. Because who controls the famine? Yah do. And not only in Genesis the 12th chapter, watch Genesis the 26th chapter. In Genesis the 26th chapter, read at the first verse.
And there was a famine in the land besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And Yahweh appeared unto him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I should tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries. In thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because that Abraham obeyed my voice, and kept my charge and my commandments, my statutes and my laws.
And so this what Isaac was commanded and commissioned to do as a result of the famine being in the land. But when the children of Israel walked down into Egypt, they only did it because of the famine. Watch this, Genesis 42. And once they did this, the Almighty marked it, timed it, and gave the number of years that they will even be in Egypt. And according to the book of Genesis 42, starting at very first verse.
Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do you look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence that we may live and not die.
Because that's what happened during the famine. You're just going to die if you don't do nothing about it. Go ahead.
And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan.
It was in the land of Canaan.
And Joseph was the governor over the land, and it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth.
And this was the very first time that they walked down in Egypt. But they didn't just walk down there once. They walked twice. And the year that they walked down in Egypt was the 3rd year, because that was the first year of the famine. Go to Genesis 43. Starting at the very first verse.
And the famine was sore in the land.
It was sore in the land.
And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, go again, buy us a little food.
In other words, they done ate all the corn the first time. Now he said, go again and buy some more corn.
And Yehudah spake unto him, saying, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, you shall not see my face except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Yisrael said, wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, the man asked us straitly of our state, and of our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brother down? And Yehudah said unto Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned this second time. And their father Israel said unto them, if it must be so now, do this. Take of the best fruits in the land of your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in your mouth, in the mouth of your sacks, carried again in your hand. Peradventure it was an oversight.
So they went again, because this famine was great. It was sore. It was grievous. And now, this second time they went, it was the 4th year. And let me show you what happened in this year. In Genesis 45. The first verse. Because this is when they went the second time.
Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all the men that stood by him. And he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For Elohim did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest.
So it's 5 more years to go. That's why I said this is the second year that they had came. They came in the 3rd year, and now it is the 4th year, the end of the year. And he's saying, look, the famine done been in the land for 2 years. And it's 5 more years left, which let you know the 5 years had not started yet. And look what happens.
And Elohim sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but Elohim. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and a master over all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt.
Because this is what happens when you have knowledge. This is what happens when you have wisdom and understanding. This is what happens when you are a prince with Elohim and man and has prevailed. Because this is what Yah would do with his servants. And he did it with yourself. And now he's master over all of Egypt. And again, the famine started in the 3rd year, and they went down and got food. But they had to go back. And then the 2nd year they went back, it's the 4th year. But this is what Yosef told them in the 4th year. Verse 9.
Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Yosef, Elohim hath made me Lord over all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household, and all that thou hast, come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin. That is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen. And ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren, and wept upon them. And after that his brethren talked with him.
And so here it is. They went down to get food and don't realize that they went down in Egypt to sojourn there. And they end up sojourning there from that time forth for 430 years. And I'm going to tell you, all it is 7 years. And you count from the 4th year, 430 years later, you're going to come right to the 1st year when the children of Israel walked out of Egypt on the 15th day. And I may add, you don't have to do it. All you got to do is send an email to us, and we'll send you, because we already did the count for you. 430 years from the 4th year, you're going to come out the 1st year of Yah sign, season, days, and year. And of course, as many of you know, if you didn't know, we walked out the 15th day. But show you something else. Look in the book of Genesis 47. And start reading at the 11th verse. Because I want you to see this. Because it's still things to behold.
And Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land.
Best of the land.
In the land of Ramses.
In the land of Ramesses.
As Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren in all his father's household with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine.
How bad the famine was, that the land of Canaan and land of Egypt, it all fainted by reason of the famine. Go ahead.
And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt.
All the money that was found in the land of Egypt.
And in the land of Canaan.
And in the land of Canaan.
For the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed,
in the land of Egypt,
and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for flocks, and for all the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all the cattle for that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year.
Now we in the fifth year. Go ahead.
And said unto him, We will not hide it from my Lord.
Or it already told you the ending from the beginning. So now it's the second year because it's just getting worse and worse. But go ahead.
We will not hide it from thy Lord. How that our money is spent. My master also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my master, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's.
In other words, the land as well as they sold themselves because the famine prevailed. Go ahead.
And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have brought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow in the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them or of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt.
And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt.
In the country of Goshen.
In the country of Goshen.
And they had possessions therein.
They had possessions therein.
And grew and multiplied exceedingly.
And they multiplied exceedingly. In other words, while everybody else was declining, while everyone else was going into poverty, while everybody else was trying to save their life, Israel grew. Israel had possessions, and Israel multiplied exceedingly. Why do you think we multiply so great, so fast, so much that Pharaoh began to be scared of the children of Israel? This is why. Because everybody, the 7 years of famine, literally took the life out of all the inhabitants. In those 7 years, Israel grew. Because this is what the Almighty would do with his servants. Everybody else falling, and Israel is rising. But when Israel fall, everybody else rise. And here it is. They was there 430 years. But the Creator delivered them in the first year. But all this began in the 4th year. That's when they went down. That's when they sojourned there. And 430 years later, because Yah said he's going to get his praise. 430 years later, that's what happened. And watch what it says in the book of Exodus 12. And before we read Exodus 12, let's just read Exodus 1, the 8th verse.
Exodus 1 verse 8. Now there rose.
Oh, let's just start at the very first verse of Exodus 1.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Yaakov. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Yaakov was 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren in all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful.
They were fruitful.
And increased abundantly.
They increased abundantly.
And multiplied.
They multiplied.
And waxed exceeding mighty.
And they were exceeding mighty.
And the land was filled with them.
And the land was filled with them. Go ahead.
Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
They didn't know Joseph because they was there 430 years, so they didn't even know Joseph.
And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
In other words, this land is really theirs because they more mightier than we.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel.
They were grieved because of the children of Israel, just because they grew mightily. And they increased abundantly. And they were exceeding mighty. And the land was filled with them. But when it was time to deliver them, in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, if we turn there, starting at the very first verse, this is what it says.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year unto you.
Yeah, this is going to be the beginning of months. This is going to be the first month of the year unto you. And when is the beginning of the month? We've been showing you that the 4th is at the literal beginning of the very first season, the very first sign, the very first day of the very first season, and the very first year. So it had to be the very first month because that's when Yah made the lights for signs, seasons, days, and years. So how can it be another month that began before the time that Yah even made the lights for signs, seasons, days, and years. And he did that on the 4th. So that's how we know beyond a shadow of a doubt what we're telling you is the truth. That was the beginning of months. Because there were many months that came after that. But there was no month that came before the 4th. Because that's when the first year, the first month, the first season, even the first sign of heaven, that's when it was given. And watch what it says in the 3rd verse.
Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of YIsraEL shall kill it in the evening.
It didn't say nothing about no crescent light or no full moon light or no light at all. It says this month shall be the beginning of the month. And you should already know what that is. That was the 4th. And 10 days after the 4th day, what do you have? Well, 10 days later, which is the 10th of the first month of the very first year, which is the very first season, is going to be on a Sabbath day. And how we know that? Because 7 days later, you're going to be right back at the 4th. And 3 days from that is 10 days, which will be on the Sabbath day. And that's when they took this lamb out and they set it aside until the 14th day of the very first month, the very first year, the very first season. And the 14th was the 4th day. And what were they to do on the 14th? They were to kill it in the evening. In other words, this was the very first sacrifice that the children of Israel did before the Most High. And why on the 4th day? Because that's when the 14th was. Because Yah said he will get his praise. And why did the Creator say this lamb shall be without blemish? Because you can't praise Yah unless you're holy. So this lamb had to be without blemish, male of the first year. And why the first year? Because Yah wants your best. He wants the first. He don't want your seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths. He wants your best. That's why he said of the first year. Furthermore, since the 4th, and just show you this about Passover, go to the book of Numbers, the 9th chapter. Because that was the very first Passover on the 14th day. And that was on the 4th day. Because it was 14 days after the very first month, the very first year, the very first season. And 14 days later, well, 7 days after the 4th, it's back at the 4th. And 7 more days after the 4th again is at the 4th. Because there's only 7 different days, 7 different years. Look what it says in the book of Numbers, the 9th chapter. at the 6th verse, or start at the 4th verse.
And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even, in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that Yahweh commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel.
And I may add, this was the first month of the second year. You'll read that in Numbers, the 9th chapter, the 1st verse. This was the second year. The 6th verse.
And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, we are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of Yahweh in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, stand still, and I will hear what Yahweh will command concerning you. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you, of your posterity, shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yah. The 14th day of the 2nd month at even they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man that is clean,
and
is not in a journey,
he's not in a journey,
and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of Yahweh in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin.
Yeah, because you got to be holy to praise Yah. And this is what they were doing. This is what this sacrifice was all about. It wasn't a sacrifice of sin. It was a sacrifice of praise. That's why it happened on the 4th day, or began on the 4th day. Of course, in the second year, it was a different day. And we're going to go into all the various days of the holy days, because we're going to deal with the holy days. Furthermore, go to the book of 2nd Chronicles, the 2nd chapter, because we're dealing with the 4th. And we're dealing with Yah signs, seasons, days, and years. And this is the 4th sign. This is the 4th season. This is 4th day. This is the 4th year. And what do it represent? Yah's praise. And to praise Yah, you have to be holy. And so in this 4th, certain things happened. We brought the fruits to the Most High. We had to bring our males to Yah. But watch what else. 2nd Chronicles, the 2nd chapter. Just want you to see this. The very first verse.
And Solomon determined to build an house for the name of Yah, and an house for his kingdom.
Yeah, he determined to build a house for the name of Yah. In other words, he was already born to do such a thing, to build a house for the name of Yah. No, this wasn't built for Yah to come dwell in. This was built for his name. But let's see when it's built. In 2nd Chronicles, the 3rd chapter. The very first and 2nd verse.
Then Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where Yahweh appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite.
And Moriah is the same place that Abraham went. It's the same place that David was. Now it's the same place where Solomon is building a house for Yah. Go ahead.
And he began to build in the second day of the second month.
Now, he began to build the second day of the second month. Why? Because the second represents Yah's name. But watch what year.
In the 4th year of his reign.
And why the 4th year? Because this house was built for Yah's praise. It was built for his praise. It was built for his name also. And this is why it was done in the 4th year. This is why it was done in the second month. And this is why it was done in the second day. You also read this in 1 Kings, the 6th chapter. Turn there. And you already know to go to this house, you got to be holy. And I'm going to show you that. In 1 Kings, the 6th chapter, the very first verse.
And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt.
Now, in the 4th year, Solomon reigned over Israel.
In the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of Yahweh.
And this is what little do people know. The Almighty marked all these various times that he began to separate things. Now he got a house that he separated from all the other houses. And he got a land that he separated from all the other lands. And that land was Jerusalem. And this house was the house of Yah. And this was done 480 years after departing out of Egypt. And let me tell you, 480 years after departing out of Egypt was the 4th year. That's when they began to build a house of Yah. In the 4th year. And speaking of Egypt, when did they walk in Egypt? The 4th year. And when they left, right before they left Egypt, what did they do? On the 4th day, which was the 14th day of that first month, they sacrificed right there in Egypt the Passover. And not only they started building in the 4th year of Solomon, 480 years after departing out of Egypt, and the 480th year is the 4th year. Watch when they finished. In this same chapter, 1 Kings, the 6th chapter, watch what it says in the 37th verse.
In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of Yahweh laid, in the month Ziph, and in the 11th year.
In the 11th year, because the 11th year is 7 years later. Watch what it says.
In the month Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof. And according to all the fashion of it, so was he 7 years in building it.
7 years in building. And if you count from 4 to 11, you got 7 years. But the 11th year is the 4th year. It's the order of 4. It's only 7 different years. So once he started at the 4th, all he did was came back to the 4th. So it was finished in the 4th. It started in the 4th. 480 years after Egypt. And while they was in Egypt, they sacrificed on the 4th. Right before they left. The very next day.
90 seconds.
And I may add, when they sacrificed on the 4th, that was 430 years before they walked into Egypt in the 4th year.
50
And
seconds.
not only that, the last thing I want you to see is in the book of Joshua. Turn there. Because our people were in the wilderness for 40 years. And I want you to see what happened 40 years later. Now, when they came out of Egypt, it was the first year. But look what happened in the book of Joshua, the 13th chapter.
10 seconds.
In the book of Joshua, the 13th chapter, or make that the 14th chapter. Joshua, the 14th chapter, and we're going to start reading at the 6th verse.
Then the children of Yehudah came unto Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite said unto him, Thou knowest the thing that Yahweh said unto Moses, the man of Elohim, concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea.
And I may add, when they built the house of Yah in the second month, in the second day of the second month, the fourth year, when do you think the beginning of that year was? Well, it was 2 days in the second month. And then you have, or 2 days after the very first month of that second month, and then you got 30 days in the very first month, which is 32 days. And you take 32 from the second day of the second month, and you're going to come right to the sixth day. And that's when the fourth year began, on the sixth day of the fourth year. Because once you have dates and times, and you have the formula, and what is the formula? Well, there's only 12 months in every year, and there's only 30 days in every month. Once Yah give you a date, then you'll know exactly when all your months begin. And we're going to show you all Yahweh months. Not only all his months that begin each particular year, but all his months throughout the year. And not just throughout the year, but all his months throughout 7 years. And you can't get that by looking at a moon. And I'm going to show you. And we're going to be able to prove, as we're doing now, when all these things begin. But watch this, during the time of Caleb. Read that 6th verse again.
Then the children of Judah came unto Yehoshua in Gilgal. And Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite said unto him, Thou knowest the thing that Yahweh said unto Moshe, the man of Elohim, concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea.
Because that's when they went to spy out the land. Go ahead.
40 years old was I, when Moses, the servant of Yahweh, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought him word again as it was in mine heart.
He was 40 years old when he went into the wilderness to spy out the land.
Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed Yahweh my Elohim. And Moses sware on that day, saying, Surely the land wherein thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed Yahweh my Elohim. And now, behold, Yahweh hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years.
Now, he said he kept me alive 45 years. In other words, it's 45 years later. Go ahead.
Even since Yahweh spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old.
Now he's 85 years old, 85 years. In other words, it's 45 years later. So now you're talking about from the very first year when they went into the wilderness and he was 40 years old, 45 years later from the first year. Read the 11th verse.
As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war both to go out and to come in. Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof Yahweh spake in that day. For thou heardest in that day how the Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be Yahweh will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as Yahweh said. And Yehoshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite unto this day, because that he wholly followed Yahweh Elohim of Israel. And the name of Hebron therefore before was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest from war.
And of course, this Hebron later on became what we know as Jerusalem. And let me tell you, 45 years later, after the very first year, what year do you think this land was established? Yes, it's no surprise. The 4th year. That's when it was established by Caleb, by the Yehudanites, who is the 4th tribe, whom Yah said we will get our praise. And if you want any of this literature, we can get it to you. And what is our email? HOY. Say it loud in the mic.
HOYCINCY@gmail.com.
Just email us your information, and we give you the various literature that we have to prove everything that we're saying. And you can study this CD, and we have DVDs also available for you. And if you want that as well, just email us. And until tomorrow, Yah love you, and so do I. Shalom.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trust in you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. But shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down and patient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.